The Law and You. A look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You. Presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation-building series, The Law and You. This is program number 822, and it is coming to you on Monday the 4th of April 2016. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, the Canouan Project Part 2. But before getting into the topic, a few preliminary remarks. Firstly, I would like to send out deepest condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements, and in particular, the family of Sister Yvonne Hagley, formerly of Upper New Montrose, who was laid to rest recently. On a happier note, let me say congratulations to two very, very dear folk who got married on Saturday gone, the 2nd of April, at St. Elizabeth Spiritual Baptist Cathedral at Overland. I referred to my good brother Swan John and Tonette Johnson. And the brother delivered a very moving testimony in church yesterday morning. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. John. And yesterday was the birthday of Mr. John. So he got married the day before his birthday. So in times to come, he would be celebrating birthday and wedding anniversary, probably the same day or the same night. Congratulations to both of you. And speaking about birthdays, young Stanley Batiste, age 7, who was a very, very, one of the youngest members of the church. Congratulations to you on your 7th birthday, and all the best to your mom, Roxanne Batiste. Today, speaking about birthdays, happens to be the birthday of none other than Deaconess Althea Peters of our church at Belmont, affectionately known to us all as Nan. Happy birthday, Nan. I hope you continue to enjoy the big day. I will not reveal your age. I would simply say you are past 18. Amen? Okay, let us leave it at that. Congratulations to all of you and happy birthday. Now, the Bar Association has put out a release calling on persons not to make derogatory statements about the judiciary. And I want to say I am strongly in support of that sentiment. When we go down that road, all we would be doing is to weaken one of the last pillars of our democracy. And when we lose respect for the judicial system, we cease to be civilized persons. It is a serious matter. Excuse me. Let me take the opportunity to say a fond bon voyage to Dr. Cecil George Riley and the First Lady, Minister Eleanor Riley, who came to the end of the week-long youth convention last evening at the Freedom Hall Church of God at Reeves Level Cedars. And we wish them all the very best. They had a lovely week here. It's always a pleasure to have the bishop here in person. Of course, we see him on Saturday nights on SVG-TV, and we hear him on Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock on NBC Radio. The Bishop and Sister Riley are practical Vincentians, and we wish them all the very best. Have a safe journey back to New York to resume a very busy schedule tomorrow, and we look forward to having you in the third week of August, Divi, for the adult convention. Okay, well, that brings me to the end of preliminary comments on this program. And I'm sure you know that that could not be the end of preliminaries, because we have to celebrate with the champions, don't we? The West Indies have done us all very proud. And to tell you the truth, I'm a little ashamed of myself that I had abandoned them last year when they were doing what I considered some real foolishness. But the West Indies have shown their worth. Imagine being champions of under-19 cricket, T20, champions of women's cricket, T20, and champions of men cricket, T20, in the same year. It has never happened before. And I dare say it may be a long time before it happens again. So congratulations to all three West Indies squads. The under-19 squad, the ladies squad, and the men's squad. Unfortunately, I didn't see a ball bowled of the men's match yesterday because, of course, I was in church. But I saw pieces of the replay on various television programs. And that last over, I mean, to hit 4 sixes in the last over of a T20 final was a feat by young brother Braffett. Congratulations to all of them. And you know what I say? I say that the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines should accord permanent residence to all three squads. The under-19 squad, including the management team that went to Bangladesh with them last month, the month before last, February, the ladies squad and the management team that went with them, and the men's squad. Of course, those on the squads who are from the OECS would have already have privileges to come and go to and from St. Vincent, but I would hope that the authorities would look into, in fact, the whole of CARICOM should honor these three squads for that unique accomplishment and give them freedom to travel throughout the length and breadth of CARICOM without any immigration hassles. Freedom to reside in any CARICOM country. That is what the CARICOM government should do. This is a one-off celebration. And I am so proud to be a West Indian. I mean, I've been following West Indies cricket from the time I was very small. I remember that 1976, I think, when the team came to England. I was at Cambridge at the time. Mike Finley was a member of the team, and I had the pleasure of visiting the team where they played at Fenners at Cambridge, and Mike Finley played a joke on me. I will tell you what it is. In those days, I had a beard, and because of my glasses, some say I had a resemblance to Clive Lloyd. So when I was there at the team quarters, a lot of English schoolboys came around looking for autographs, and they spotted me and ran to me, about a dozen of them, asking me for my autograph and calling me Clive. So I said, no, I'm not Lloyd. And they kept pestering me and say, yes. So I spotted Mike Finley and said, Mike, tell these children that I am not Clive Lloyd. And Mike Finley turned to me and said, come on, Clive, sign the autographs for them. And so I had to sign the books for those children so as not to disillusion them. So I must say I am guilty of having signed Clive Lloyd's name in a lot of books of English schoolboys in summer 1976. But back to West Indies cricket, we are all so very proud. You know, why we get angry with the men when they play the fool and lose is that we know they have the potential. And on this tournament, the men's tournament in particular, they showed what we can do. People used to regard us as a one-man team. Chris Gayle, if Chris Gayle doesn't make runs, we can't win. Well, Chris Gayle didn't make runs in either the semi-final on Friday or the final, but the team did win. Power to all of them. I mean, we have a team, as Sammy said, of 15 winners. I am so very, very joyful. And I hope all the youngsters in the Caribbean would have taken inspiration from the performance of the ladies' team. I hope the young girls playing cricket would have been inspired by the women's team. Now, we will not always be on top, so let us enjoy it while it lasts. Champions! Ha ha! All right. Let me take a drink of that. Okay, Miss Bracken, you're satisfied now? Luan Bracken, you're satisfied? Okay. All right. The Canouan Development Project. Now, I have to be guarded in what I say about the Canouan Project for this reason, that there is one aspect of the project which is currently before the court, from what I understand. I have not seen any of the court documents, mind you, but as I read the newspapers and also Eyewitness News, hello to Mr. Chance, great job, I am aware that there is a matter involving, I believe, Mr. Bino and the Canouan Resorts Development Limited Company. The allegation is that there has been an injunction in force for some 15 or 16 years, and various allegations and counter-allegations have been made, and the last thing I read is that the matter is to be placed back in court. You recall recently there was an act of protest, well, several acts of protest, but one in particular on which I commented last program, where apparently the entrance to the resort, or one of the entrances to the resort, was blocked for some 2 hours, and I said, you can't do that. I also reminded you on the last program that I was the Attorney General in office when the Canouan lease was negotiated back in 1990. Mr. Mitchell had sent me to New York and Miami to have discussions with the Canouan developers. He went on several sessions. They came to Canouan and we finalized the deal. And if you look in the revised laws of St. Vincent and Grenadines, 1990, you will see my signature as witness to the lease which was signed by Sir James Mitchell. In the 2009 edition of the laws, the signing page has been left out. So I have some acquaintance with the Canouan Project. At the time when it was negotiated, and remember I mentioned the mentality of the developers at the time. I can't swear for the present lot of developers because some of them have changed places, but Mr. Saladino, with whom we dealt, and Baron Carlo Amato were impeccable investors. and Sir James was extremely concerned with the welfare of the people of Canouan. If you have access to the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you look for chapter 139, it is called the Canouan Resorts Development Limited Lease Ratification Act, 1939. It was first passed as Act number 4 of 1990, and there were amendments in 1994 in our time, and another amendment in 2004 in the time of the present government. The lease that was signed was taken to Parliament and given the force of law. So that if you look at section 3 of the Act, you will see these words. The approval of the House of Assembly is hereby given to the lease agreement and the appendices thereto, which shall have the force of law, as if enacted in this Act, and which shall be binding upon all licensees, as if they were parties thereto. And the lease agreement referred to was dated the 31st of October 1990 between the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Canouan Resorts Development Limited. And you will be able to go through the entire lease, all 27 clauses in that lease. Now, of course, we don't have time to go through the whole lease, but I would just want to indicate some of the thinking which informed these arrangements. The government wanted Canouan developed because at the time the Grenadines on the whole, apart from Mustique, had not been really developed over the years. And Canouan was an island, or, a large part of Canouan was actually Crown property owned by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And of course there was a resident native population. And when Sir James first burst on the political scene in 1996, he represented the Grenadines constituency. It was one constituency in those days. It later became two, Northern and Southern Grenadines, but in the first few years of Sir James's representation, the Grenadines was a single constituency. And it used to fascinate me to listen to Sir James outline the lack of development in the Grenadines when he started representing them as compared to what happened a few years after that. And if you wonder why the New Democratic Party is so strong in the Grenadines, has been winning election after election, by election, in the Northern and Southern Grenadines, it is because of Sir James and what he did. He laid a solid foundation. And I dare say it will be a long time before NDP loses its electoral grip on any of the Grenadines constituencies, thanks to Sir James Mitchell. Now, let me touch on a principle of law before I go any further into the lease. We have an act called the Prescription Act. And that act provides that where the public have been using a road or path through private lands continuously and without dissent from the owner of the lands for at least 20 years, that road or pathway becomes a public road or a public pathway. After 20 years, you cannot stop people using that road or pathway. That is the first fundamental principle of law we should understand. The second principle of law is that the authority of the government stretches not just at the physical boundaries of the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but stretches way out. First of all, there is a 12-mile territorial zone, and this is common to all countries. Countries which are bordered by the sea own the first 12 miles of ocean as part of their territory from the shore. Beyond that, there is an exclusive economic zone, and the boundaries of the EEZ can be elastic, but the 12-mile territorial zone, so 12 miles from any part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, belongs to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, so we know the 12 miles begin in the sea. But when those 12 miles come in and come onto land, where do the 12 miles end? Well, there's a principle of law saying that the Crown, the government, owns all beaches up to high water mark. And high water mark is the place where at the highest tide the waves come ashore. So let us establish the fact that all beaches in St. Vincent and the Grenadines belong to the government. In other words, they are public property. There's no such thing as a private beach in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, that does not mean that because all beaches constitute public property, that the public have a right to do what they feel like on the beach, because if there are installations and developments made by the private person who owns land adjacent to the beach, then those become the property of the owners. So you cannot do what you please with property belonging to the owners of land which are bordering a beach. Now, it doesn't mean that because a beach is public, it doesn't mean that the public have a general right to walk through private land to get to the beach. You recall my saying a while ago that the Prescription Act says that if the public, members of the public have been using a roadway without interruption for 20 years continuously, then that becomes a right. So the question as to access to beaches has to do with whether it can be demonstrated by evidence that the public have enjoyed an unfettered right to use a roadway or a path to a beach. And if it can be demonstrated that that right to use a road to a beach has existed continuously for 20 years, then it becomes a public pathway. And no one can stop the public using it. So these two principles must be borne in mind when people speak about the right to beaches. So that I recall when I was a student in Barbados, and I lived in Barbados between 1970 and 1974, the government of Barbados passed legislation to provide access to every beach in Barbados over private land. But the government can do that. The government can create rights of way over private land by means of acquiring the land, so that if the government wants to provide an access to a beach that hasn't got any clearly defined access, the government can buy the land consisting of the roadway, can compulsorily acquire that land for the public purpose of providing a pathway to a beach. So there are some beaches to which the public have an access by virtue of more than 20 years using a clearly defined roadway or path to the beach without let or hindrance. And there are some beaches to which the public do not have access because no pathway has been used continuously for 20 years or more. Therefore, it is important in the case of every single beach in which there is a controversy as to whether the public has or doesn't have a right to cross, to use private land to get to the beach. It's a question of fact in every case as to whether a right of way had existed for 20 years or more. Now, these points have to be emphasized and have to be borne in mind. It seems that I will have to do a third program on the Canouan Project because my time for this program has expired. But when I do the third program, hopefully next week, Divi, because I had intended to look at the decision by Justice Cottle that was handed down this morning and analyze it for you, but that will have to wait. I would want to finish this topic, so I would want to go into the Canouan Lease Ratification Act generally, because as I said, I don't want to trespass on anything that is before the court in terms of the legal battle between Mr. Baino and the Canouan authorities. But the last word I would say is that we have to approach these matters from a practical point of view, from a common sense point of view, and with respect to the rights of everybody. So I would leave off at that point and celebrate with the West Indies once again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, until next Monday, Divi, may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You. A look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You. Presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.